A True House of Horrors by AtomicZNTO. The night of October 31st, 2018 will forever be ingrained in my mind as the worst night of my life. It started off so well, but then it crumbled to ash. I might as well introduce myself. My name is Dave. I'm 15 and I have a love for people. I can't help but make you my friend. You don't like me? Well, too bad. I'm going to be your friend. You pour your milk before your cereal. You're weird, but you're still my friend. I'm friends with a lot of people. Yes, I only have a small group of friends that really connect with me, but this group is made up of people that have been together since the dawn of time. Okay, so not that long ago, but kindergarten is as far back as really we can even remember. So it's close enough. One of them I knew even before kindergarten, or at least that's what our parents told us. His name is Mike. He's the one in the group that makes us actually do stuff. He finds attractions near our area as well as plans the dates for when we can all go out, which is where we start the story. My group of friends loves October. The cool weather, the apple cider, the leaves on the ground, and most importantly, Halloween. We all love the season. We all think we're too old for trick-or-treating this year, but we still love the atmosphere. The fake spider webs, skeletons, the whole 9 yards. We just love scary things, which is one reason we finally decided to go to a haunted house. After we convinced our parents that we were mature enough. We are a strong group of 15-year-olds. We can take on the world. At least until we were really shown it. We were ecstatic for the next few weeks leading up to the day that we could all go. I myself was a little frightened, having never stepped foot into a haunted house, but I still looked forward to being with my friends. Mike came up with the idea after receiving a flyer at a costume party that he was at. He said, "This year, we are actually going to go out and do something instead of being bored and candyless on Halloween." Ah yes, a true stamp of the scariest month of the year, haunted houses, I said with a grin, and my friends agreed. We planned to go on Halloween night. We reasoned that most people would already be busy babysitting or passing out candy that night. And all of our schedules worked out that way as well. It was a stupid idea. We should have gone the week before, or after, or not at all for that matter. Just not that night. The weeks leading up to All Hallows Eve were excruciatingly long, hour by hour, day by day. We all suffered in our minds until it was finally the dreaded night. We decided to meet at my house because my family was the only one that had a minivan that could fit all of us in it, and my dad had agreed that he would drop us off there. Once at the address on the flyer, we all noticed something that drew us back. The building almost seemed to be abandoned, like some kind of office building or warehouse type place that went bankrupt. We frantically checked to make sure that we had the right address. "Yep, this is the right place," my dad added reluctantly. "The True House of Horror," he chuckled. "You guys still want to go?" Grumbling, I said yes. Looking back now, I wish that my gut instinct would have kicked in. Inside, the idea of the place being left to rot was becoming more of a reality. The main door opened with a loud screech, and we stared into the dark corridor and noticed that it went down to what seemed like the other side of the building. Double doors lining each wall. And speaking of walls, the ones here were what used to be white, but they were now tan with a hint of mold green. At this point, we were really uneasy about this place, until we noticed a light coming from one of the rooms. We were relieved to see that it was a worker sitting at a table set up in the room. We assumed that this was where we were to sign up. "Welcome to the one and all True House of Horror," the worker said. "Enter if you dare, to the worst place you ever saw." We started to chuckle by the worker's voice. He was a zit-spotted teen, older than us, who had a surprisingly crackly voice. and was exactly who you would expect to take any job that they could, which is where he seemed to be now. My dad stepped in and said, "Oh, we thought this place looked like it was empty. We thought we were in the wrong address." The teen replied, "Yeah, apparently the owners had a tighter budget this year and this was the only place they could find. I heard that before this place was bought, it was home to insane people who escaped their asylum. We all thought nothing more of this than a little joke to show what is ahead." After being signed in, my dad left and we were led to the entrance of the house. "Before you go in there, I need to tell you a few things. Blah, blah, blah," the guide said monotonously. My mind started tuning out his voice because I was focused on enjoying the event that lay before me. "You guys got that?" he asked. "Yes," we all replied. He opened the doors and wished us good luck as he closed the door, whatever that meant. The room was dark. A very dim backlight turned on, illuminating our random clothes that we decided to throw on this morning, as well as the small room that we were standing in with one long hallway in front of us. We trod carelessly down the hall, where we were met with a man jumping out in front of us covered in red spots all over his shirt, as well as his face. "Save yourselves!" the man screamed at us in panic. "He's got a chainsaw and he's killing them! He's killing them!" he screamed. We all gave a pity scream and tried moving along, but he persisted to the point of grabbing my arm. "Hey, back off, man," I yelled at him. "I warned you," he said, running out of the way we came. We reached another room, with a dissected person with guts, blood, and body parts strewn all about the room. Everything you would expect from a Saw-esque room. After that, there was no one. No zombies, no knife-wielding maniacs, just a putrid smell. We started to realize that the $20 a person should have given us at least some more production value. But then we were greeted with something a little different. A man in a straitjacket, chained to a wall. "Finally, a person," I said out loud. "Turn back! He has a chainsaw! They're screaming! They're screaming! Chainsaw! Screaming!" It seemed like that was all the guy could say. It was pretty good acting. Maybe there was still some hope for this house after all. After going through the door of that room, we were met with a long hallway. Finally, we heard something. Like someone was struggling to yank a pull cord and an engine quickly dying repeatedly. Like a frustrated neighbor trying to get his old lawnmower to work. I bet $5 to anyone who stands still when the chainsaw guy comes out at us. I heard from the back of the group. Mike decided to take them up on it. Mike was always fearless, which most of the time seemed to be a blessing, but now it was a curse. He marched up to the front of our group to show that he was getting the $5. As we headed to the corner, the noise of the engine finally started, and the group paused. A man in a plastic hockey mask turns the corner. He looked overweight. He wore a blood and sweat-stained tank top. His jeans were torn all along the front and around the ankles. He was mostly bald with a few stragglers poking up. The light glistened off his greasy, sweaty head. He was wielding a chainsaw. The engine roared as we stopped right where we stood. It was at this point that I noticed the rotten stench emanating from the man's general direction, which was odd because we could see the glow of the exit sign right over his shoulder. As the man slowly approached, our group stepped back at a similar pace to his, all except for Mike, who was determined to win the bet. No one was ready. The man, huffing and puffing, waddled up to Mike and swung the chainsaw. Instead of whiffing like we all expected, the spinning chain latched its teeth directly into Mike's neck. Blood began spurting across the room as his screams became more and more muffled. As his lungs and throat filled with blood, we watched in horror as we saw this crazed man hack away at Mike's body. Our friend was being brutally murdered right in front of us. We were all motionless, helpless to the horrors presented to us. Eventually, Mike's screams stopped. His now lifeless body, or at least what remained of it, dropped to the floor with a wet thud. The man stared at his destruction, a masterpiece in his eyes, for what seemed like over a minute, until his focus snapped back to us and he started to walk. I was the first to snap out of my trance, and I pushed the others into the room. Completely ignoring the chained-up man, we all started to realize the gravity of the situation, and we began running, screaming, and crying all at the same time. One of us even started throwing up. As we were running back, the other workers noticed us and blocked the hallways. "You guys know the exit is that way, right?" He pointed to the end of the hall, like the Grim Reaper pointing to the open grave for us to walk into. I tried explaining to the man what the situation was, but all I could get out was incomprehensible mumbling. I didn't need to say anything. The revving of a chainsaw followed by the muffled screaming of the chained-up man at the other room got the workers' attention. We pushed our way right past him and ran back to the entrance, but the door was locked. "There must be something blocking the door," I said to the group. "Help me bust it open." With the combined might of our group, all like a battering ram, we slammed into the door, like a car into a concrete wall, and we all fell to the floor. The sound of the chainsaw's whir spurred up the might in our scrawny teenaged bodies, and we busted down the door, but only to fall into a room filled with an inferno. Whoever did this wanted his tracks to be covered. "There's no other way. We're gonna have to get through here," I yelled to the group over the flames. We braced ourselves. The smoke made me shield my eyes, but I turned around to see the man standing at the other end of the hallway. Just standing there. He had all the opportunity to attack us, but he didn't. I didn't dwell on that fact too much before hearing a loud crack. It was the supports. The building was going down, and we knew it. I started shoving the group forward, yelling, "It's now or never!" The flames burned our hair, clothes, and flesh. But that was the least of our problems. We make it to the exit. The group keeps running, but for some reason, I felt the urge to look back. Standing at the end of the hall was the man, his mask off. His face was hideous, its eyes almost drawn on, no nose in sight, and its mouth was what seemed to just be a hole, with teeth lining the edges. I noticed then that there was something in his right hand, a lump of what looked to be. "No, it can't be," I said to myself. Mike's pale face stared me in the eyes, and his disembodied head was lifted up to the creature's toothed hole. I watched as the thing put Mike's whole head in his mouth and swallowed. Immediately after that, the roof caved in. Debris was thrown everywhere. When I turned around, I was shocked to see a police car as well as many fire trucks at the scene. Apparently, someone nearby saw the building was on fire and called the police. After being checked out by the doctors, we were sent home. I didn't sleep that night. That thing was engraved into my mind. Mike's scared expression was still on his face. It was etched on my eyelids whenever I closed them. It's been a while since the accident, and I feel that it's time that I let someone know what really happened. Despite the local news excluding the fact that the thing's body was never retrieved. As a matter of fact, they left out the monster altogether. They said it was just part of the show and a freak accident had happened with some faulty wiring. They thought we were overthinking it, that there was no real murderer, that we were just scared, and that started us imagining things. Especially me after I described the beast to my parents. I knew they would never believe me, but we know what we saw, and we know that Mike was killed in cold blood. We aren't crazy. I'm not crazy. Except now I'm beginning to think that I may actually be crazy. I'm beginning to hear things. Very familiar sounds. Bone-chilling sounds coming from my backyard. It's like a frustrated neighbor trying to start his lawnmower. People normally cut their lawn at 12 a.m., right? Anyways, I better get to sleep.